Check, 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 check. Is that working now? Thanks so much, Nancy, for saying that. Check, 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 check. Okay, I guess working now. Thanks so much, Nancy, for saying that. Check, 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 check. Okay. That was just gonna loop forever. Thank goodness you caught that. Yes, now we can hear. Because track is going through, I wonder. Got you now. Okay, good. I don't want to have a million audio tracks on. Okay, so I'm not going to say everything I just said because that would just be super annoying for everybody. But we're looking here. Real quick update on the corona before getting on to the topic of tonight, exposing just the wickedness in the world and the reality that, again, the continuous kind of the theme of this whole entire thing is to help people understand, like, the most powerful people in society, it's not presidents and prime ministers, it's the wealthiest people above them that pull their strings. And they're not like you and me. I don't understand. People think that the wealthiest people are just like we are, but with more money. And it's like, no, you don't understand. When you get to a place where you have so much influence and power that you're above the law, your idea of fun is distorted. Your idea of morality and ethics are distorted. Your vision of what the world should look like gets distorted. And so these people want to reshape the world in their image that they control over it. But before we do that, we're going to just take a quick look at Corona. Because if it isn't obvious, they're using the coronavirus. Some theorize that they've released it or whatever, but hey, benefit of the doubt, wasn't engineered. Fauci did not send $4.7 million to the Wuhan clinic over there in China 4 or 5 years ago under Obama, or whenever it was, or maybe it was 2017 under Trump. No, he didn't do that, even though he did. But it's got nothing to do with anything. So here we are real quick. October 11th. Start over. My lip reading's off. Oh, I know, right? Okay. So October 11th of just this year. So just the other day, Sunday, coronavirus can remain infectious on banknotes, other surfaces for weeks, says a study. So we all remember when this first kicked off. Oh my gosh, when you get your groceries home, bleach everything, wash everything off, wash your countertops, kill every last piece of bacteria. It can remain on a surface for 10 days. Okay. So, well, we'll come back to this thought, but is that true? Well, no. Later on, they said, you know what, guys, don't worry about that. For a little while, they were saying, well, there's worse things to worry about, aerosols. But no, let's listen to Dr. Fauci, the chief medical guy down in the United States, and what he was saying just a couple weeks ago. This is from a guy I listen to named Jamie Deluxe. I don't agree with everything he says, but he does put out very carefully investigated stuff, which I appreciate. Here we are.
We were all wiping down groceries. Are we still wiping down groceries?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I want to get back to masks too in a second. It's a really good question. And the reason is that we used to think that because the virus was detectable on inanimate objects, which we call fomites, that there may be a considerable degree of transmissibility. We're finding out that that's not the case.
It's not the case.
There's zero transmissibility.
Zero?
With a ball or a racket. But the overwhelming evidence is that it's much.
All right. So, why, if the overwhelming evidence is that this isn't a big deal, why are they coming out with this stuff? Okay. This is all from 2020. I'm just looking at the results from the hits. Desktop capture here. New normal. CTV News, guys. This is our national propaganda wing. Our Canadians ready to go cashless. You know, but in this pandemic time, blah, 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 blah. It's taboo. Cashless society only works for those, yada, yada, yada. In a world about to go cashless amid coronavirus. This is from June. This is July. Is COVID-19 bringing us closer to a cashless future? July 27th, fact check. Cashless society isn't imminent. Oh, God. Friggin' fact checkers, man. Just don't even listen to them. Yes, it is definitely. Cashless society isn't imminent. Wouldn't eliminate cash. Friends, if they tell you that if it's dangerous to have the cash out there because of the coronavirus, they're going to get rid of it. In fact, it was I think it was the U.S. Federal Reserve was saying they don't have change anymore. You know, they can't afford to make more change or something. Will a cashless world be a fair one for everyone? This is June 26th. I looked this stuff up. We'll kind of go cashless post-pandemic. Back when the first day in like April that I saw stores saying we cannot accept cash because of coronavirus. And I had already known by then. I was like, look, the projections are wrong. It's not killing nearly as many people as they said it was going to. Like, we're talking ratios of 1 in 100,000 in terms of just the magnitude, 1/100,000th of what they said it was going to be, basically, you know, 20 million. 1/1000th. Yeah, 1/1000th. So 20 million dead in the United States. No, it's been 200,000, which is a tragedy, but it's like a bad flu season. So don't call me heartless just because I recognize that the flu kills in the United States like 80,000 people a year or something. Anyways, so I saw that. I got home and I looked up stuff, and financial journals were saying. Financial journals were saying it's time. This is a good opportunity. Anyways, so someone sent me that and said, look what they just put out. And it's like, I'm not surprised. We learned last video that Microsoft has a patent under WO 2020-060606 A1 that they want to have they want to sell biometric scanner readers for everyone to wear so that you can identify who you are and then use that device in order to access a digital cashless currency in order to make all your payments. So Bill Gates is pushing all of this because he wants to sell that all over. And then, of course, we looked at the Chinese social credit system, where they do have a lot of digital apparatus in place so that, you know, you cannot buy a train ticket to go from city to city or plane ticket to fly out of the country if you've said things that the Communist Party there don't like. If you don't think this stuff is coming, you're asleep at the wheel, and I don't mean offense, but it's unfortunate because you are one of the people, by your ignorance, propelling us towards the worst, the second worst fate you can even imagine. Hopefully my sound is working now. Okay, so let's get on with it. Let's get on with tonight's show. Close that. This. Oh, right. But before we go, it's just another quick COVID update.
But we had Professor Sunetra Gupta from Oxford University on, and she was implying, and I'm interested in you because you have a global mandate, a global view, was that a problem we don't think about in lockdowns is that they're very nationalistic. That if we lock down our economy, then it hits our economy. but it also means we are not buying stuff. We're not trading with weaker economies. We are not just destroying our own jobs, we're destroying the jobs of all those that in the poorer parts of the world that export to us. That seemed to me to be a
So one of the big things, again, because the end goal agenda is a one world government, right? And you have globalists, that's what it means, a person who prescribes to the philosophy of globalism, which is different than globalization. Globalization is just that there's an interconnectivity between nations around the globe, thanks to technology and travel and whatnot. So you can transfer things, trade, whatever, travel, great. Globalism is the philosophy that everyone should be not just interconnected, but one in terms of a nation and under a government. And my goodness, friends, you think it's bad seeing a dictator run amok in a distant nation. What happens when that's over the whole entire world? It's complete naivety to think that having one guy over all of the earth would be a wonderful thing. It's ridiculous. Some of the theories out there are just preposterous. Like no borders means no wars because then there's no nations to fight with each other. It's like you got gang turf wars, you've got civil wars, you've got people in families having family feuds. Why would the fact that there's no imaginary borders, and no literal borders on maps, now make everyone be at peace? It's ridiculous. But so Dr. Gupta comes out and says, "Oh, everyone's becoming too nationalist because of this." Well, not really, but the globalist push is still there. But so obviously, damage control here, World Health Organization, which is being utilized as one of the pieces to push through the globalist agenda. What do you do now, right? You can't keep everything locked down and segregated because that keeps the nations apart.
a reasonable point.
Really important point by Professor Gupta. I want to say it again. We in the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as a primary means of control of this virus. The only time we believe a lockdown is justified is to buy you time to reorganize, regroup, rebalance your resources, protect your health workers who are exhausted. But by and large, we'd rather not do it. Just look at what's happening. This
just came out this last week. Lockdown should be a temporary tool in the toolkit in order to battle coronavirus, right? Just do it for a short period of time so that you can get everything in place and get set up, whatever. Why didn't you tell us this 8 months ago? No, of course not. No, because this is not what they really believed. Remember when they were saying don't close down air travel. It's racist to put what do you call it? Like travel restrictions on China right now, how dare you, Trump? And then a few months go by and they're like, how dare you, Trump, for not shutting down things quick enough, right? It's just such a bunch of baloney. Meanwhile, yes, they were telling countries to lock everything down, and they certainly weren't telling countries not to lock down, not that I heard. And it destroyed the economies. And of course, if you have a whole bunch of countries now that their dollars are just ruined and they're just hurled into debt, now, it becomes much easier for them to make some sort of arrangement with some sort of governing body over there to say, hey, we'll come under you, and these debts that we owe to these, international banks or whatever will now be expunged. It's just a bunch of silliness. Now listen to what he's about to say.
To the tourism industry, for example, in the Caribbean or in the Pacific, because people aren't taking their holidays.
Like, that's his prime example of what's going on that's wrong. I can think of a lot of things before that. But if you're going to talk about tourism, you could talk about tourism anywhere. Why the Caribbean? I wonder if they have friends that are like, gosh, this has really hit our wallets. I don't know. It just sounds so silly to me.
Look what's happened to smallholder farmers all over the world because their markets have got dented. Look what's happening to poverty levels. It seems that we may well have a doubling of world poverty by next year. We may well have at least a doubling of child malnutrition because children are not getting meals at school and their parents in poor families are not able to afford it. This is a terrible, ghastly global catastrophe, actually. And so we really do appeal to all world leaders. Stop using lockdown as your primary control method. Develop better systems for doing it. Work together and learn from each other. But remember, lockdowns just have one consequence that you must never, ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer.
Wow, man, these guys are just real caring individuals. Here's my theory. So you've heard of the term boiling the frog. Okay, so you're probably familiar. Some countries, frogs are considered a delicacy. But if you try and throw, and it's for whatever reason, it's not as good to eat a frog that's dead and now cooked. For some reason, the frog is better if it's boiled alive. But of course, if you try and throw a frog into a boiling pot of water, yes, he's going to be scalded, but he's going to try and escape. And so what do? You put him in some warm water and you slowly heat it up over time, getting them used to the temperature again and again because they're cold-blooded, until finally it just cooks their insides and they don't even know that it's happened. So they're trying to, since what the Soviet Union tried to do, since Germany, in smaller countries where just unfortunately education has never been that great. And I don't mean because of our educational institutions. No, I'm talking about because of our cultural upbringing. We have read, we have learned math, and for the most, in many ways, being able to learn how to think logically and reason. In countries where that wasn't the culture, you just, you spent your days looking for food or gathering sticks, while only people in the cities, got developed. It was really easy for them to just go out to the masses and say, hey, you can all vote. Do you want a socialist country so that government will help take care of you if you're poor? Yeah. And so they accepted that. And then they got dictators like over down in Venezuela, and that ruined their country. Here, people can access easily all kinds of historical literature and see, good Lord, look how bad it has been all over the world when communism and socialism and Marxism has taken root. So we don't want that. And so, they've had to, and we've learned this episode 4, I think, maybe 4 or 5, that they infiltrated the school systems from K to secondary, post-secondary, to indoctrinate people and brainwash people to think socialism is the answer, right? So that we would accept the Marxist agenda, the globalist agenda. But with so many of us, we go, baloney, this is crazy, we don't want this. And so they've got to boil the frog slower than back in 1930 and 1905 or 1907, when it was just, they just sold ideas to people and they was like, yeah, great, let's get rid of the czars, or yeah, great, let's allow Hitler to have all the power now, so that he can solve a bunch of our problems. It's just ridiculous. And so the globalists are getting impatient. People like George Soros are getting ready to die. David Rockefeller just passed away recently. He wanted desperately to see the one world government. This is their life's work. You want to see the fruits of your labor. George Soros has already vowed that he will see the fall of America and the end of a Trump presidency. And so, they're trying to speed up as fast as they can. But the problem is people are getting alert. So when you go fishing, you cast that line and you get a bite, and now that fish is on the line and you're trying to reel him in. You reel him in too quick, he's going to be fighting, even more ferociously. He may start to, he may start to fight so much that the line breaks, and you don't want that. They don't want an all-out civil war, and frankly, I don't either. Good Lord, please God, I don't want it to come to that. I want people to wake up and say, you know what? This whole system needs reform. We have got to elect new parties and new MPs, people that aren't connected to the United Nations, aren't connected to the wealthiest families in the world, just regular people that want to have a small government and let us be free. My goodness. Anyways, whatever. That's a rabbit trail. And so what you do is you let out a little line, and then you start again. And you let out a little line, you start again. This is just them letting out some line. No, my goodness, we never wanted lockdowns. Oh, heavens, no. Oh, don't worry about surfaces and cash. God, you won't get sick from cash. Oh, you will get sick from cash. You need cashless. We need a cashless society. So it's just them trying to manipulate us and be skillful about it. All right. Here it is. Without further ado, 1 hour, 17 minutes. So thankfully that won't be too long. Oh, guys, don't exhibit this free YouTube video.
Why do you believe what you believe? Because at some point in your life, you trusted the information that somebody was giving you. And that someone you trusted told you that a car was a car, a tree was a tree, a bird was a bird, the blue stuff above you is the sky. And that's the way that we began to determine what we believe to be a fact. Most of the things that we believe to be a fact in our lives are told to us through our stories or the news that we hear. So my question would be, if they were deceiving you with the stories they tell you, would you be able to recognize that?
It's an interesting theory, Nancy.
Conspiracy theory. Personally, for me, I've never really had time to get into any of that because, frankly, I'm working all the time and I don't have the time to look into Bigfoot or aliens or flat Earth or 9/11 conspiracy or the JFK assassination. It's just, it's not anything that I really have any backstory on. But the one thing that I do have a lot of backstory on, the one thing I do know a lot about is Hollywood.
When you think about the entertainment industry, what comes to mind? Movies, TV, music, right?
Brainwashing. That's what comes to my mind.
Entertainment.
Distraction.
What if this entertainment was more than just entertainment?
Now in complete control!
When you're driving home from work, what are you listening to? When you come home after a long day and turn on the TV, what do you see?
The U.S. are bracing.
Saying that they're one.
Think about all the content you've seen throughout your whole life. A lot of it has actually made us who we are today.
So you don't know what's really going on.
Have you ever stopped for just a second, though, and questioned the content? The only thing we consume more than content is air. But we actually think about the quality of the air we breathe. Maybe it's time to take a closer look at our content.
And fear. Taxes.
Our government's always controlled our content.
The fight for freedom.
We've just
Sorry about that. I guess my computer's just trying to do too much all at once. Motion pictures are inescapably one of the world's greatest forces for influencing public thought and opinion, both at home and abroad. First Vice President Walt Disney.
controlled our content.
The fight for freedom.
We've just never paid attention.
Freedom of speech.
Message received.
The police occupy
Like, it's a force that could be used for good.
Stabilize foreign countries.
This media that we're consuming at such a rapid rate, we need to slow down and think about what we're consuming.
Bullshit going on.
What if the people in charge didn't have our best interests in mind? Now we have to ask ourselves, who's influencing our content?
I'll let you go back and pause
Is the
things.
CIA involved in Hollywood?
Yes.
If there's things you want to go back, pause, and look at, it's always helpful.
That's good right there. He's picking up speed. Go, go, go.
I often will pause and read whole bodies of text when I see them in a, holy smokes!
So for the past 28 years, I've probably had one of the coolest jobs in the world. I was a professional stunt performer. I've worked with some of the biggest stars. I've got to be Batman. I've got to be James Bond. I've won World Stunt Awards. I am in the Screen Actors Guild. I'm in the DGA. I'm in the WGA. And last year, I got into the Academy, the Oscars. I worked my way up from being a stuntman to being a fight coordinator, to being a stunt coordinator, to being a second unit director. Action! First big job I get, I'm on Batman Forever. And I'm walking around set and I'm pinching myself. I'm looking over, there's Tommy Lee Jones, there's Jim Carrey, there's Val Kilmer, there's Drew Barrymore, there's Nicole Kidman. And I'm like, how did I get here?
You're brought here for such a time as this.
I didn't really say I'm gonna go be a stuntman. I wanted to go make movies. But being a stuntman was the easiest way for me to get into the business. I didn't want to be an actor because like, pretending to be a character. Well, being a stuntman, I was that character.
I've seen most movies.
Behind the illusion, creating it for the guy who's on the screen. I jumped out of that helicopter. I was in that fireball. I did whatever was being asked of the job. I've had an amazing career, and I've had an amazing life.
That's a cut.
But in the system that exists today, as I get up the ladder, I realize it's not what people think it is. It's an illusion. It is a complete illusion.
What, is he talking about special effects? What's he talking about?
In 2014, I was working on a television show up in Portland, and I had a catastrophic injury. I've done this stunt, probably variations of it 20 times over my career. It was nothing. It was a small fall down into a stairwell. I did the first take fine, the second take, I knew I could do it better. I went up and I fell over the rail and I landed on the pipe down below. The first fracture of my L2 vertebrae, and I was paralyzed from the waist down. When you are injured, when you are catastrophically injured and it changes who you are, I knew from that day I would never be the athlete that I once was. And I always told people as a stuntman, the worst possible injury you can get is a lower back injury. You can break your legs, your arms, whatever, but if you injure your lower back or your hips, your pelvic region, you're done. There was 2 years that I didn't think I would ever live without pain. One of the issues I was dealing with at that time was I had lost the feeling, and I still have numbness in my thighs and on this half of my pelvic region. I was going to physical therapy, and the lady looks at me and she goes,
I love this story.
You're way more advanced than this stuff. And I go, yeah, I do this every morning. She goes, well, what's the real issue? I said, the real issue is my pelvic region. And so she said, okay, well, there's a woman who works here, and she is a pelvic floor therapist.
So how I met Mike, I met him, his spine was broken and he had partial paralyzation of his pelvic floor area. We help people when they have problems with the most important functions in your life: bowel, bladder, and sexual function.
So one day we're in the middle of therapy and she stops me and she says, Mike, I feel like you have really dark spirits over you. Can I pray for you? And I was like, pray for me? I'm like, yeah, sure, pray for me. I don't really believe in that stuff anymore, but yeah, go ahead, pray for me. So she prays for me. And I was kind of thinking while she's doing it, okay, this is weird, but okay, whatever. So for the next 2 or 3 months, I would go, and then every now and then she would stop me and she'd say, hey, can I pray over you?
I was kind of a little bit disgusted with his personality because he was all about himself and money, and I think the Lord had a lot of work to do in terms of humility with him. He made it very clear that he thought I was crazy, but he let me.
After she stopped one day, and I said, you are either 100% batshit crazy, or you think all this is real in the spirit world. And she looked at me and she said, Michael, I am one of the only pelvic floor therapists in Southern California at the time. And when these satanic people and these evil people do their rituals to little girls and women and boys, who do you think puts them back together? I do. It's completely real, and you need to look into it.
My awakening, it didn't happen at church the way that some people find God. I just pretty much had given up my faith, and I'd given up where I was at, and I was just kind of at the point where I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have the best time I can here, and when I die, that's it.
Party on, Garth!
I still wasn't sure if it wasn't 100% crazy or not, but I was reading these articles and looking at these things, and I was like, you know, I've seen things at parties, I've seen artwork, I've seen statues, I've seen things in some people's houses that just seem to be mimicking occult stuff I'm reading about. So I was like, maybe there is something to this. I'm just gonna say this. I didn't find God because I went to church. I found God because I realized that the Luciferian and the other side, the occult world, was real, and that I had been fooled for all these years, and I then got really scared.
Without God, you have a lot to fear.
I got really scared.
Stuff is real.
This was the first time in my life that I was having to question my own reality. Physically, I was crushed. I wasn't going to be who I was. And spiritually, I mean, if I'm being honest, I didn't know anything about being a Christian. I mean, really. And then professionally, everything that I knew about my career, I was starting to look at in a different way. I was starting to question my career in Hollywood from a different perspective. So I got off of social media and I made an anonymous account. I started reading blogs, looking at articles, I started reading books, I started watching videos online. I just started searching for the truth, and I was finding accounts that were searching for the truth themselves. They weren't mainstream accounts. These were accounts online that I felt like were like me. They were just looking for what the truth was. I didn't believe I was getting the truth from CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I didn't believe any of them. I just wanted to read it, absorb it, and digest it, and trust what my gut told me I was reading. As I did my research, I began to understand there's a very
I'll just pause really quick, friends. You can't really trust your gut. If your gut is working and telling you the truth, it's only by the grace of God. More on that later.
Small group of people that influence all the companies that we watch. So they used to call them the Big Six. But Disney just bought Fox, and Disney controls Marvel, and Disney owns Lucas Studios. So look at that giant audience right here. Say a small group of people control the narratives and the content that we all see on all the channels. It makes you feel like, oh, I have lots of choices, but you don't. Who's telling them what to put on those channels? Where does that lead?
Tonight, the FBI is on the case, and they are warning big companies in America to protect their data after a big Hollywood studio got hit by hackers and several blockbuster movies ended up online.
This is the first time the United States has accused a foreign government of a cyber attack against an American corporation.
And this interested me because I worked over at Sony quite a bit during my career, and I actually had to get LifeLock during the Sony hack, so I was curious. I was like, what was this really about? Well, the narrative put out in the public was Seth Rogen and James Franco made a movie about North Korea. And so they were mad, and so they decided to hack Sony to teach them a lesson. That was a public narrative that went out, and that's what I was like, well, that makes sense. You know, I know Seth and I know James, and they're definitely pushed the envelope of comedy, and their sense of humor is definitely their own. And I thought to myself, okay, that makes sense.
And now private emails are going public.
It's a public relations disaster.
But what I found really interesting as I examined the WikiLeaks documents was it showed that the heads of one of our biggest movie studios in America was in direct communication with very important people in our government. It didn't surprise me. I was like, okay, well, either they're friends or there's something more to it. So I never really thought about the government influencing our content or our stories. Could they be influencing our story and our content? Like, these were real questions that I never had asked myself. I just did the jobs. I went to work, I did my job, I did whatever was asked, and went home. Never thought about this stuff. So I was like, I don't really know anybody that can answer these questions. And I reached out to this guy who
So, like I said before, I would be pausing a video like this and reading, like, what is going on? And just real quickly, you saw some of those emails were talking about the CIA involvement from someone at Sony. He's still a nice guy, though. What does that mean? You know, that's where people that want to do their own investigation, then go to WikiLeaks, start digging. WikiLeaks isn't fake. WikiLeaks is so real that they went after Julian Assange and locked him away, you know? Yeah, it's real, genuine, stolen emails, so real that John Podesta and Hillary Clinton, both of them couldn't say, no, these are fake emails, because they knew eventually if the truth comes out, now they've been lying. So they just deny what the meaning of things in them is.
I'd been watching online. His name was Kevin Shipp. And for those of you who don't know who Kevin Shipp is, he's a CIA whistleblower. He worked in counterintelligence, and he served in many capacities in his tenure at the CIA.
That was when he had hair, I guess.
Is the big picture. An official television report to the nation from the United States Army.
It was an OSS memo, the precursor to the CIA, where they were doing a study of the use of motion pictures in America as a means of psychological warfare. So it goes all the way back to pre-1947, when U.S. intelligence was using motion pictures to alter the thinking of Americans in the United States.
The morale of our troops is high. The laughter, music, and general entertainment which comes out of a single small package like this one have helped to build that morale.
The CIA is funneling information into Hollywood. Hollywood is putting out in the movies, and the population believes it.
Taxes to bury the Axis.
That's just insane.
This document right here is a FOIA document. Anybody in America, anybody can request this. It's Freedom of Information Act. And in the 40s, they were telling you they controlled the radio stations. They controlled most of the mainstream media. They're telling you right here that motion pictures are used as psychological warfare. Why would they stop doing it?
At no time has the CIA engaged in any political activity or any intelligence act activity. It was not approved at the highest level.
Well, there you go. It was
Dulles
approved.
Groomed and recruited Ian Fleming, and Dulles and the CIA actually helped Fleming write his books and paint the CIA in a favorable light. And they also, Dulles helped produce Thunderball to make the CIA and agents look like honorable, cool people. The CIA actually helped him write the books and write the script for that movie. And then the president of MPAA was actually providing intelligence to the CIA as an operative in that position in Hollywood.
Mr. Fleming, in your books there's a great amount of detail. Is this detail based on personal experience? Do you make it up? Where does it come from?
Well, I can say it's 90% from personal experience, really. Of course, if I started sticking too close to the true espionage work of today, I should be in trouble with the Official Secrets Act in England, even supposing I had...
I think I lost my feed to Facebook or something. I want to check if I got an update saying there's been a copyright strike. Oh, no. Okay, I just went from 7 to 3 viewers all of a sudden.
access to information.
Operation Mockingbird will know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is
There's
false.
No question about the fact that Mockingbird is real. It started out paying journalists in major media, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists, to print fake stories that the CIA wanted in the press and fake interviews. And this was revealed in the Church Committee.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
And of course, then the CIA destroyed the rest of the files, which is what they do. George H.W. Bush came out and finally made the statement about Mockingbird. Well, we're going to officially stop the Mockingbird program. The CIA will no longer pay journalists to write stories. From now on, the program is voluntary, which means Mockingbird continues today. When's the last time you've seen a mainstream media outlet do a serious investigative report on the actions of the CIA? There's a reason for that.
Yeah, wow.
This would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
You say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
Platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Oh my gosh. So, there's something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow on our historic position of freedom. I feel we need to correct it. Harry S. Truman, 1963. Obviously, the president before Robert... oh, wait, what was his name? Sorry, John F. Kennedy. So, if you don't know it already, there are agencies that collect the news, they do a lot of the journalism, and then they sell it to news outlets who then put it out there. If you watch Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams, like that's one of the things he was so pissed off about was he was just being fed what to say as the news in Vietnam, but he hated it because it was propaganda. And, you know, his printer would just go off in the morning with all the things he was supposed to say. It's sort of like that with news outlets. Yes, sure, there's some journalists in there doing this, that, or the other thing, but most of what you see on TV is just talking heads, and it's the director editor that chooses what stories are going to happen. But you know, obviously something like we just saw, someone at a high level said, okay, it's very important that we put this out there. It's like basically a public service announcement, but done in a way that won't look, you know, so unnatural as getting that high-pitched squealing, you know, signal on your TV, you know, beep, beep, this is a public service announcement, and then hearing the thing. But, yeah, eerie.
There is something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow on our historic position of freedom, and I feel we need to correct it.
Senator Moynihan proposed a bill to dismantle the CIA.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Introduced it twice. The second time was 1995. Ironically, 1 year later in 1996, the CIA established the Entertainment Liaison Office, which was specifically penetrated into Hollywood, and Chase Brandon was actually co-wrote scripts. For example, The Recruit.
We're looking for high horsepower, high energy, very competitive people who are driven by patriotism and a sense of wanting to serve a greater cause.
I am recruiting you. Would I have to kill anyone? Would you like to?
So the CIA was and is in Hollywood, was and is contributing to Hollywood productions and that manipulation.
The Recruit.
Nothing is what it seems. As I started to wake up, I never actually considered that the CIA had an office in Hollywood. And I'm like, well, I see this, I see that. And I started putting feelers out, like, does anybody else see this stuff? And not many people were awake. But the one person that I reached out to was an old colleague of mine, a friend of mine named Brad Martin. And Brad and I had similar careers. We worked our way up through the business together. And I'm like, hey, Brad, you've seen this, you've seen that? And he's like, yeah, for sure. And so that gave me strength. That gave me like, okay, well, I'm not alone in this deal. And I'm gonna keep looking.
Let me just say this. Brad's one of the greatest stuntmen I've ever met. Probably the best.
I'm a very physically creative person. I've been doing action for movies for 26, 27 years. I excelled at the action aspect of it, at the physical aspect of doing the fights and doing the gymnastics and doing the falls and doing the driving. I trained really hard and became one of the top stuntmen in the business. I started becoming a fight coordinator, and then a stunt coordinator, and then an action director. Very few people have ever gotten to where I've gotten to, and I'm super proud of what I did. I mean, I had a very idealistic view of the movie business, and I've been disillusioned a few times. It feels very much like there's an agenda in every movie. I realized that it was more of a machine, and it was more of they just needed content to put out there for the masses. I stopped really watching TV. I stopped really watching movies. And one of the reasons why I stopped watching movies is I got into my research and what's going on in the world right now, and all the corruptness and all of the plot twists of reality. And I started realizing that reality is 20 times more interesting than Hollywood. I mean, I was a Hollywood buff. I loved all of those movies, but now they're meaningless.
Holy
because
smokes.
I know what's going on right now actually has purpose and has a meaning, and there are consequences. And once this story is told on what's happening in the world right now, and all of the powers that be battling each other, it will be the greatest story ever told.
Oh, he's not
For
wrong
instance,
there.
I saw something on History Channel. talking about how the CIA helped Disney buy all the swampland in Florida. Well, why on earth would they do that?
His lawyers in charge of purchasing the parcels had served in military intelligence during World War II and knew how to keep a secret. And they used several different companies, none with Disney's name, to acquire the properties.
Now I go down this rabbit hole of what does the CIA have to do with Hollywood, or at least with Disney? Washington, D.C. is definitely in Hollywood. I have seen documents of the DoD and the CIA writing to the studio heads, guiding them in certain fashion. There's a lot of things that people would talk about that are conspiracy theory, but there's some things that ring true with me. It's like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Another program developed by the CIA after World War II was called Operation Paperclip. It's been depicted in many movies, including Disney's Marvel series.
It's Operation Paperclip after World War II shield.
So what they do sometimes in movies or in entertainment is they put right out there the thing that people are starting to investigate, and they spin it and they tell it as something else, or they make it sound so goofy, or they make it sound so benign or whatever, that if you're a common person then hears someone talking about Operation Paperclip, they're going to dismiss it. One example right now, Call of Duty Cold War. Call of Duty is one of the biggest video game names ever. If you've got kids, they've probably played Call of Duty. If you're under the age of 50, you've probably played Call of Duty. And so you know what Call of Duty is. Well, one of their developers, Treyarch, has been one of their best and most brilliant developers. And they're the ones that came out with the Black Ops series. Well, they're revisiting that kind of old story from the 60s, 70s. It's called Cold War. That's the new one coming out in November. They released their teaser trailer a couple months ago, and in it, on a little TV, was the footage from the interview we watched in episode 4 of ex-KGB propaganda expert Yuri Bezmenov, who defected, fled out of India, where he was assigned as a field agent to work with the newspapers, I think. And he came and said, look, this is what they're doing. This is how they're taking over the world. They've infiltrated your schools. They've infiltrated your government. They've infiltrated your seminaries. They've infiltrated your universities. They've infiltrated your charities. They're everywhere in order to keep spreading the philosophy and ideologies of socialism and Marxism as good things in order to get everyone to go along with that, while also getting into Hollywood and media and subverting the culture, demoralizing the culture, changing the ethics of the culture, because they knew, I don't know if it was psychologically or spiritually or from history, like we're looking at the Roman Empire, for example, that societies that were ethically and morally corrupt were easy to fall and be taken over. I don't know, it's maybe because the people have no sense of duty or identity to the nation, so they just don't care anymore. Who knows? Anyways, Treyarch has put that out there, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Treyarch's not one of the good guys. The stuff they've put out in their games is full-on conditioning and just real satanic stuff in their zombie games. Anyways, so they put it out there. I'm like, how are they're outing the agenda? So, but then it talks about, Yuri Bezmenov talked about Agent Perseus, and he is the one man sent to take down the government or whatever. And it's like, or sent to take down the nation. And it's like, wait a second. Yuri Bezmenov, I've only watched 2 of his interviews, or one was an interview, one was actually a lecture he gave at a class. I don't remember him talking about Perseus. Maybe he did. But here's the reality, friends. There was no one person sent. There were thousands and thousands of people. And then they would also recruit and invite people that were already agreeing with their ideologies to come over to the USSR and study or learn or visit. And then they would, or they would take journalists who they thought were the most susceptible and bring them over, giving them a guided tour. That's what Yuri Bezmenov would do while he was working in Russia. to show just how wonderful the communist system was, keep them on the one track where they wouldn't get off, and see how horrible the system was, and then send them back so they could write nice articles about it to brainwash the public. So there was no one person, but they're telling people that so that the masses look at it and go, oh gosh, it's just silly. Yuri Bezmenov, who cares? You know, there's not one person. In fact, I talked to some guys who were playing a video game, and I mentioned Yuri Bezmenov, and they're like, oh, that guy? Oh yeah. So like, you don't know what to believe anymore. Who cares? There's just, you know, that's basically what he was telling us. There's a bunch of psychological operations just to make you think what they want you to think. So yeah. Obviously there's not really an agenda to take over the world. And I was like, that was your takeaway? You watched that whole hour and 10-minute interview and you came away from it thinking, I don't have to worry about anything? Like, that's just how blind people are, willfully blind. Like, the guy didn't want to admit, like, man, the world I live in is super fragile and it's on a collision course. But anyway, so my point is, you know, they're talking about paperclip in the Marvel movie, obviously in order to lead people astray. Another thing, friends, is like with these people, they love hinting and putting it in your face and kind of sticking their tongue out at you, you know, figuratively. Yo, what's up, Nambu? How's it going? And so that's just the reality. Let's continue on.
Recruited German scientists with strategic value.
Thought I could help their cause.
Operation Paperclip, and this is something people need to know because it has been so covered up and mocked and berated and claimed to be a conspiracy theory. And by the way, the term labeling people as conspiracy theorists was invented by the CIA to deflect any attention over the JFK assassination. They invented that word as a way to shut down any scrutiny or this critical investigation of what they were doing. So they started that whole ball rolling. In terms of Operation Paperclip, it is documented. There's absolutely no question about it.
It was Nambu, yeah.
Alan Dulles, CIA director, was associate of Heinrich Himmler of the Third Reich. So what Dulles proceeded to do when the Third Reich was brought down was he secretly brought all of the top Nazi scientists into the U.S. He falsified their files that he gave to Harry Truman, making them look like there were no war crimes.
Awful.
They brought these Nazi scientists into the CIA to work for the CIA, and that includes the human experiments they conducted on Jewish men, women, and children, and the psychological studies that these Nazi scientists had done. The CIA was using their expertise for these programs through Operation Paperclip, and this was Nazi, much of it occult beliefs that the CIA adopted and actually put these people on their
No problem, Nambu.
One of the programs that came out of Operation Paperclip was MKUltra. Now, MKUltra was a very complex program that dealt with human experiments and mind manipulation.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation.
That's like a creepy...
MKUltra came out as an actual program of mind control using mental, physical, and sexual abuse and psychotropic drugs.
This is a super creepy documentary that came out.
It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
A decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans.
I wrote about this in my book, my free book.
Cameron went further with drugs and electric shock treatments than any researchers in the MKUltra project dared.
They were operating in Montreal too.
Mind clean. Then he would implant new messages by forcing the patient to listen to a hypnotic repetition as many as 250,000 times. This was called psychic driving.
He would give the patient intensive electric treatment. He would attempt to implant new ideas in the mind of the patient.
What an evil
To
person.
a layman, it would appear that Dr. Cameron was trying to take the slate and wipe it clean. The slate
I do, Nambu,
being
yeah.
the mind. In other words, brainwashing.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison.
Brainwashing.
Yes, if you like.
LSD, friends.
Good heavens.
You're doing fine. Just try to describe it. Oh, you don't know. You want to give yourself. You want to give yourself surgery.
It's so spiritually dangerous.
How do you feel inside? Inside. I'm living inside.
Nobody explained it to me. Nobody ever asked me if I was willing to do it or anything.
Wow.
They put me on sleep treatment. And now they kept you asleep for 23 days.
Ugh.
And while
That
I
can't
was
be good
asleep,
for you.
They were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks.
And why 23
and
days?
Playing tapes.
Why are you letting shame responsibility?
It was really like a concentration camp.
What a feeling that is. You mind if I look this way? You look that way. Nothing for you to watch here, but you're going to talk to me as we go along.
They couldn't go any further because CIA Director Richard Helms destroyed all the CIA's MK Ultra documents, and they had to rely on coached witnesses. So they were never able to dig even deeper. What they got was bad enough. It was never terminated. There's no evidence that it was ever terminated. No documents, no nothing, and not even an admission by the CIA that it's been terminated.
How do you feel?
I'm feeling better, thank you.
Feeling better? Are you
Doesn't look
sleeping
better.
Yes, I'm sleeping better now.
Ugh.
We could disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. After all of these years of us, those of us who were involved in looking for this secret drug, this was the only thing that began to look for the first time like it might be something like that.
So MK Ultra was one of the hardest programs for me to wrap my head around because it's a lot of subset programs. And I was really surprised.
So then the CIA took LSD and started giving it to willing psychiatric professors around. They wanted to get it out into the American public. And so Timothy Leary was a psychiatric professor at, I forget which school, I'm sorry. But so he said, yeah, I'll do it. And so he was testing it, doing weird, disgusting spiritual experiments with his students. I think Harvard Divinity School was one of them. I don't know if it was with Leary though, but anyways, Leary helped move the drug revolution and the sex revolution, the cultural revolution of the 60s. He was praised by Susan Sarandon at one of the last Burning Man festivals out there in the desert. I don't know which desert it is. I think his ashes were even spread out there, but just bizarre. Anyways, Timothy Leary said in an interview that he was doing the work of his mentor or his inspiration, Aleister Crowley, and that he thought Aleister Crowley would be very proud of what his disciples had accomplished since his passing in 1947. Well, if you don't know who Aleister Crowley is, you need to go research that. He's basically the father of modern Satanism, and he channeled all kinds of demonic writings and wrote several books that were gobbled up by people in Hollywood and in the music industry, and also people in the intelligence industry. It's no coincidence that you got all these evil dudes come over from Germany, start working with the CIA and working on rockets. Before NASA was NASA, it was something else. One of their premier rocket scientists was an occultist himself who had played the organ at one of the temples Aleister Crowley had established in the United States, I think outside Los Angeles. I forget what his name was, James or Frank or. Anyways, that guy was also friends with the dude who founded, what's it called, Scientology. Anyways, I wrote all about this in my free book. Hehasanswers.com. Hehasanswers.com. You can download what's been written so far in a free PDF, and I go just extensive. It's not too extensive, but probably a good 40 or 50 pages about this stuff. And but yeah, it's just evil. It's just evil, and it's no wonder that this stuff is now destroying society.
That Brad Martin knew about MK Ultra.
All right,
people.
Thanks,
think
Nambu.
that
Have a great
research
night.
People are crazy for
Be
talking
blessed.
about MK Ultra, mind control. Even if they acknowledge that existed, they go, "Oh well, that ended in the '70s." That's a crock of shit.
And perhaps the world's only hope of stopping a sinister assassination plot.
The movie that I did involving that topic was Zoolander.
The fashion industry has been behind every major political assassination over the last 200 years.
I mean, at the time, I was making a comedy and I had no idea what I was involved with. But now looking back on the movie, I'm blown away at just the propaganda.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
In a movie like Zoolander, when they're showing you that they're controlling Derek Zoolander's mind through mind control, you realize that they're trying to desensitize you and to make you think that what you're watching is fiction because it's in a comedy.
Yeah. It's just some goofy thing. MK Ultra, whatever, who cares? I watched Stranger Things. I know what MK Ultra was. It was just a test to see who was psychic or not. Man, it was just diabolical. They wanted to see if they could mind control whole populations when he was talking about putting it in the water system. So they were like, well, what might happen if we put it in the water system of an enemy nation? Oh, yeah, we could poison, we could cause them all to be unable to fight maybe. Yeah. But they also at the same time realized, wait a second, we could also put it in our own population's water in order to make them docile and make them better citizens. I don't think they ever did, but the fact that you would even think this stuff means you're an evil, manipulative, controlling psychopath. Like even the idea that they're like, the media is a great form for conditioning the masses and improving morale. Man, there's a huge difference between like, hey, let's put out a good movie that kind of boosts the spirits of our troops versus, hey, let's put out a big fat lie to make our troops do what we want them to,
It's like a mass MK Ultra now. Their purpose is to capture the minds of the people and feed them false history. The CIA is funneling information into Hollywood. Hollywood is putting it out in the movies, and the population believes it.
All right, so look, here's the deal. They have been desensitizing us since we were born. And I'll give you some examples. Let's start with the big one. Let's start with words we hear all the time and never even think about. Let's start with the word entertainment. To entertain. What does that mean? To bind or hold. To bind or hold what? An audience's attention. Okay, now let's take the word Hollywood. Where does that come from? Well, Hollywood comes from the holly tree. And the ancient druids, back in the day, used to take the holly tree, make wands to weave spells, cast spells, or channel spells. And when they needed help, they would consult the magi's or the mediums of the day to help channel their spells to the population. We'll cut to today. What do we have in our houses? We have these black boxes. What are they called? TVs. But if you stop and you say the word television, and when you turn on that television, what do you get? What's the first thing that pops up? A list of channels. And when you turn on those channels, what's on those channels? Programming. They are programming you. They've been programming your whole life. You don't even know it. They do it with your music. They do it with your TV. They do it with your movies. They do it with your games. They have been programming us and programming you since you were little, and you don't even know it because you don't even question it.
not only do you have a channeling of ideas, there's also the idea of spiritually channeling something spiritual. Channeling is the idea of communicating the ideas of
Starting
demons.
In 1900, we entered a previously unimaginable time of modern technology. Advances that allowed the rulers of this world to construct and direct our stories in ways we previously never imagined. As a result, new techniques to control the population were realized. These are the people from the companies that we have trusted to deliver us our news and tell our stories. This has always been about controlling what we as the population think and hear. They help create our culture and influence our society. We as citizens only trust them because as a society, we think that the gatekeepers have our best interest in mind.
The dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts, and it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job. That is our job. That is our job. Our job.
As I was researching, I found that most of the early communication companies were developed for shipping or aviation. And a lot of the men that started these companies were commissioned by the military during World War I and World War II. Many of these men worked for the Army and Navy intelligence services, along with the OSS, which we know became the CIA. There were many examples of these men becoming the heads or founders of some of the biggest motion picture and media companies before and after their government or military service. I wanted to know how many of the media companies in today's world connected back to Washington. So I started looking. It was like a family tree. The connections between our government personnel and the media corporations was unbelievable. Google, Amazon, Netflix, Twitter, CNN, ABC. So what would happen if all these companies had the same political ideology or agenda? We as this population like to hear people confirm our confirmation biases. We like to hear people tell us that we're right. We don't like to be wrong. And we believe that the people on the media and the people that we're listening to have our best interests in mind. The problem is what if they don't? So if you stop and think about it, they can place any agenda on the population that they choose.
Lucifer,
I think
Netflix,
that Hollywood is
yeah.
teaching bad morals to the youth of this country,
Cuties.
as well as adults. Desensitizing of violence to the masses. You can't deny that. My kids have seen so many people get killed in very violent ways.
3 times as much gun violence now.
And the sex that's in PG-13 movies.
Why?
Every Disney movie, there's a major character, usually a parent, that gets killed. Trauma to the child. Why? It's so horrible. What a bad story. Why do you need to start a story with a parent dying? Always. It's so sad.
Under MK Ultra, they experimented on children. We were even taught this in psychophysiology program that if you get to a child between ages 1 and 6 or 1 or 8, especially with sexual abuse or sexual trauma, you will split their personality and they will be imprinted the rest of their life. And many times that results in split personalities and dissociative behavior and other things.
These occult topics are being introduced to our kids, and most parents aren't even aware of it.
But Disney's so good.
So the biggest surge
got Disney Plus. Can't get rid of it.
Took place in the late 60s and the early 70s with movies like The Exorcist, Amityville Horror, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, and Roman Polanski's
That was so friggin' disgusting.
And coincidentally, this same time period, it parallels the rise of the Church of Satan in Los Angeles, and it was founded by a guy named Anton LaVey.
And meanwhile, you had Kenneth Anger, who was one of their members. Sammy Davis Jr. was another one of their members. So was Marilyn Manson. Anyways, Kenneth Anger, I think it was a musician. But anyways, he made a bunch of real creepy cult, satanic indie movies too. And it's just like, He was a big fan of Aleister Crowley too. He actually went to Crowley's kind of house. I don't know what you'd call it. Not a hideout, but over in small town of Italy. And Alfred Kinsey met Kenneth Anger there. They hung out. It's bizarre. Probably had sex.
So it is done.
When I was a police officer, we had cases of satanic cults right in Arlington, Virginia.
This, that was HR. Hold on a second.
So it is done.
Okay, so for one thing, the Church of Satan, Luciferian Satanists, they want you to believe that they're actually atheists, that they don't believe in the devil. It's just such a crock of crap. I mean, some of them might not. They believe in science is what they like to say nowadays, but they're serving their master, whether they want to admit it or not.
When I was a police officer.
And then this is H.R. Geiger. This is the fellow that imagined Ridley Scott's Alien, that really creepy xenomorph beast from Ridley Scott's Alien and Aliens franchise. And of course, this is his artwork. It's interesting, yes, but it's very dark, very sexualized, and comes from a very bad spirit. And yeah, so like very wealthy people could contract him to make their furniture and stuff and their art. Oh, he's got a museum over in Europe where he's from. I forget where, if he's from Sweden or the Netherlands or whatever, but it's like it's just so I think it makes you feel dead inside.
We had cases of satanic cults right in Arlington, Virginia. Those have been around for decades. They're in the high schools, they're in the colleges, they're in the government, and they're in Hollywood.
I got to meet people like Sammy Davis and that kind of shit. Sammy told me he worshiped the devil. Sammy was like, you know, Satan is as powerful as God. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He says, why do you think there's so much anger in the world and killing and murder and Satan? And he saw my reaction to it, then he kind of lightened up on it. And he was like, the downtown is dark, and it's the candles on the table, and Sammy's face over the candle. You know, Satan is as powerful
See,
as
Jerry,
God.
he's like, okay, this is funny, but please stop talking about this on my show. I don't want the world to know about this. Jerry's a huge transcendental meditation guy, okay? He loves to just relax, empty his mind, come to peace with the universe. Friends, when you empty and open your mind, what do you think gets in there? Who's protecting you? Your mind is supposed to have a fortress around it so that demonic spirits can't attack you.
From our point of view, it really makes no difference whether you pray to a father god or to a mother goddess or to an entire gaggle of gods and goddesses.
Michael Aquino was a high-level officer in the National Security Agency. He was and is, you'll see him today, a practicing Satanist. He created the Satanic Temple of Set, which he still runs. He was a high-level NSA officer. He's a member of the association I used to be in, the Association of Former Intelligence Officers, AFIO. He's a member of that. He's plugged in big time to the intelligence community, and he wrote a paper called Mind War. And Mind War was about psychological operations against populations, including the domestic population, using Satanist techniques and tools.
Aquino was first involved in MK-Ultra operations during the Vietnam War as part of the Phoenix program.
Bizarre!
No, first I've been involved in intelligence and psychological operations.
Why would you want victory at all costs, at any cost? That you're going to, like, oh, there's no God and there's no devil, so who cares? Let's just use whatever power this is, and one day we'll explain it. This must be some sort of metaphysical, natural explanation. Oh, yeah, right. A lot of those guys from the OSS who formed the CIA were Skull and Bones members. They're part of secret societies. They themselves were already satanic, or at the very least, puppeted by satanic spirits. So, of course, a guy like this gets to climb high in the ranks, infecting, the people that you want in your country to be the best and the most ethical, and self-sacrificing, awesome people that you want your military to be.
For about 40 years in all levels of it and across the intelligence community.
You are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army.
Correct.
Now,
Oh, look, it's
and how does
Oprah.
the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
Probably has him on a
The
Rolodex.
Army has known about my religion for the entire span of my Army career, which began in 1968.
Why is she giving him a piece of stage?
The Army has paid very little attention to it, the same as it would to anybody who was, say, a follower of Hinduism or of Buddhism or any other slightly unusual religion today.
He was occupied a position at the Presidio, which was a training facility for the U.S. government, and it was uncovered that he was running a pedophile ring. I think 50 kids came out and fingered him as the guy that had done sexual acts on them as children. It went to trial. He walked from the trial successfully because he had a good attorney, despite the fact that there were multiple witnesses that said Aquino, through satanic rituals, had abused them as children. There's no question that he's a practicing Satanist. Just watch any one of his interviews.
On this altar is one of a number of daggers, which we may use in our rituals.
For what?
This one happened to belong to the commanding general of the most elite unit of Germany's infamous SS, which was concerned with black magic and occultism research in general. Anything that it could find
Occultism
that had to
research.
do with the origins of the human race, destiny of humanity.
The perverted view of the occult held by Heinrich Himmler was of an evil magic that could help create a new master race. Wewelsburg Castle is where he performed his ceremonies.
I have been to the Wewelsburg, which still preserves Heinrich Himmler's ritual chambers to this day, and have conducted a black magical ritual in the so-called Hall of the Dead beneath the Wewelsburg.
So, friends, we learned in the last episode about Bill Gates and his family's ties to eugenics, the idea that you can, identify who the greatest race is, the master race, and continue populating with just those people. The whole concept's just satanic. It's just evil. We're all made in the image of God. Yes, we're fallen, but there's only one race, a human race, and we branched out, and because of where we were, micro evolution, adaptation, caused us to just change in different ways. Like our pigment, just manifests a tone or a color differently based on where we are. And this is just so dark.
Particular dagger is inscribed to our comrade in the Leibstandarte Theodor Wisch, Brigadeführer, a major general in the Waffen-SS. And on its blade, it bears the inscription, Mein Ehre heißt Treu, or my honor shall be known by my faithfulness.
Aquino's thesis stated that enemy populations could be subdued by inflicting a state of psychological terror and feelings of imminent destruction. He discusses the use of psychotronic weapons and electromagnetic weapons that influence the mind.
What? Yeah.
By
Go look into the patents for
extremely low-frequency
microwave.
signals, piggybacked on broadcasts of radio, TV, or microwave communications in order to influence and manipulate the thoughts and feelings of the target population. These ongoing MK-Ultra operations are functioning as a counterinsurgency and infiltration operation aimed at destabilizing the United States and other industrialized nations.
I give the CIA a total credit
for
for
Timothy
sponsoring
Leary.
and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. But for the moment at least, the argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius.
God, the age of the Aquarius. Oh my gosh. Not a good thing, friends. When the child of Horus rises.
The epitome of the summer of love. I mean, we saw the possibility of the way we could live.
It's odd because in Laurel Canyon, so many of the soon-to-be stars there, their parents were in either the military-industrial complex or intelligence or the Pentagon. In Frank Zappa's case, his dad was working at Edgewood Arsenal, where they were doing biochem studies, psychotropic, and exposing U.S. troops to VX nerve gas and other things. The family kept gas masks in their house. He grew up with that in case there was an accident. And Edgewood Arsenal was doing this very similar, related MK Ultra projects on U.S. troops.
Crazy.
The Gulf of Tonkin is another prime example. The commander of the Gulf Fleet in the Gulf of Tonkin, his son was Jim Morrison. They claimed the USS Maddox was attacked by Vietnamese vessels. It was never attacked. As a matter of fact, they put ghost ships on the radar to make it look like they were Vietnamese ships. The Maddox was never attacked. It was an actual, literal false flag to enable the U.S. to declare war on Vietnam. So Jim Morrison's dad was involved in the false flag of the Gulf of Tonkin.
Evil. Evil.
After talking to Kevin, I started looking into Laurel Canyon. I drove down Laurel Canyon to Hollywood almost daily when I first moved out there. And I never knew that there was an old Air Force base called Lookout Mountain U.S. Air Force Base at the top of Laurel Canyon. And what's funny is, if you do the history of it, it's owned today by a guy named Jared Leto.
Another tactic developed out of the MK Ultra project was the use of compromise and control via honeypots.
The decision was made to do testing on unwitting victims. It was decided they should be on the fringes of society because they were most vulnerable.
We did quite a study of prostitutes and their behavior. How do you take a woman who is willing to use her body to get money out of a guy to get him to talk about things which are much more important, like state secrets? We learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom. We started to pick up knowledge that could be used in operations.
There would be victims in all of this. As one agency memo says, we have no answer to the moral question.
That's one of the CIA's favorite tactic, are honeypots. And I work with CIA psychologists, and they're dirty.
I always felt that every house should have its own secret panel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. You lift this up.
Mm-hmm. This is a trap door. Opens up and looks into the cave, or what time is called the Wu Grotto.
Oh, boy.
They're running blackmail operations where they're getting very well-known government and private industry elite people in compromising positions at the Playboy Mansion, on Epstein's plane, on Orgy Island, and they're photographing them. And after that, it's like Congressman so-and-so or CEO so-and-so. I wouldn't bring that up if I was you, because we got photographs of you with a 14-year-old girl on Epstein's plane, for example. And you talk about shutting somebody up permanently, that's how they do it.
What happens in the grotto stays in the grotto.
Okay.
Look, it's pretty simple if you think about it. To control the population, you have to control the people messaging the population. Some of these stars have 20, 30 million followers. That's more followers than CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC. These people have to be controlled. They can't just go off a message and start saying whatever they want to say. They have to be somewhat reined in. They have to be controlled, or they do not get the platform to have the voice that they have.
Crazy.
Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you.
It's not even comedy.
Everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long, where they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't care about you at all, at all, at all.
It's like it's not even stand up.
And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
There's another lie.
You just look at the bigger picture and you check out for a minute and you kind of compare the ancient times to today. Well, back then they had like what, demigods and gods? They were like Achilles, Hercules, Apollo, Mercury. All these were demigods. And that's who the people in those days looked up to. Well, today we have all these people like Jay-Z, Rihanna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry. In film, we have Brad Pitt, Will Smith. We have all these big stars. And the way they prop them up and they put them up on stage is like they're gods or demigods.
In this room are some of the most important TV and film executives in the world. People from every background, but they all have one thing in common. They're all terrified of Ronan Farrow. He's coming for you. He's coming for you.
I don't get it.
Talking of all you perverts, it was a big year. It was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care.
Most people don't want to cross the psychological line.
Look at Tom Hanks' face.
Going on, and we all have a mental defense mechanism. It's like finally admitting there's an elite pedophile ring. I mean, most people just don't want to go there. And the same is here. Psychologically, you lose your safety, your security, and whatever innocence you have when you realize that this stuff is really going on. And it's a chore to cross over that barrier and realize, oh my gosh, this stuff is really happening. And that's why it takes critical thinking. The people have got to look at this stuff critically and see what they're being fed so they can cross that psychological line that they just refuse to see it when it's right in front of them.
When Kevin said there's an elite pedophile ring, well, I'm thinking to myself, this is a hard thing for me to come to terms with. Now, it made me start thinking about conversations and things I'd heard, but I'd never saw it. It's not out in the open. And to me, I was like, no one could do that. Because, I mean, if I saw someone hurting a kid, I would kill them. I mean, I would literally kill them. I would never allow someone to hurt a child in front of me. Things Kevin was saying were things that were hard for me to cross the barrier. I did not want to believe it. I didn't want to go there. But as I went down this journey, I forced myself to go consider, what if this is real? And the only person that was talking about this stuff was a girl named Liz Crokin. And the media had declared her completely out of her mind. But as I started researching some of the things she was reporting on, I was like, there's truth to what she's saying. So I want to talk to her.
I started working in journalism at a very young age. I got my first job working for Fox Chicago at about the age of 17 years old. At the University of Iowa, I studied political science and journalism. One semester, I interned for Bill O'Reilly at Fox News Channel. My last year in college, I interned for the State Department's White House reporter, and that placed me reporting in the White House every single day for a few months. I went on to work for the Chicago Tribune, and my first boss there told me that everything that I should get should be checked over and over and over again and verified to death. That's how I was trained, and that's what a true, honest journalist does. I started covering local politics and local hard news, and then eventually I got my own column for 7 years where I interviewed tons of celebrities and politicians and musicians, and worked at Us Weekly, and then at one point I worked at In Touch Weekly magazine. But then in 2015, I felt the need to get back into covering hard news, and in early 2016 I started working for Town Hall, and then eventually I started working for the New York Observer and broke a lot of election related stories. I worked in media for over 2 decades, and I never had any issues. I was very well respected. I basically was embraced by the mainstream media until I started reporting on Pizzagate.
That's got to tell you something, friends. Like
Now, when Pizzagate came out, the media tried to turn Pizzagate into something that wasn't.
Surprises of the presidential campaign was the explosion of...
She was on the path to success. You know, a few more years, she probably would have been anchoring at MSNBC or something. But she starts talking about something else and destroys her own career. At any time she could have stopped. Why would she keep going? For clicks, likes, shares on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube? No, it's because it was the truth. And once you see the truth, you can't just stop unless you're an evil or cowardly person.
Fake news on the internet.
28-year-old Edgar Welch was arrested in Washington Sunday afternoon outside Comet Ping Pong, a popular family pizza parlor. D.C. police say Welch fired at least 1 round into the restaurant floor with an AR-15 rifle like this one on his Facebook page. No one was injured.
Someone on Twitter whose name remains...
That one bullet coincidentally went through the floor into the Comet Ping Pong computer server for their online menu and also private backdoor members access web area, destroying the computer so that they could no longer get any files from it. Why was this the narrative? Why did this happen? Because just a week previously, hackers had gone in because they're like, why the heck is there a secret area on a pizza website? And so they hacked in. The members, certain members could access and look at child pornography from that server. And so the hackers put it all out on YouTube. You know, it's all there. And the truther movement that was following Pizzagate was like, holy smoke, smoking gun. And then suddenly this guy gets mad, takes his AR-15 in, and gets angry and shoots 1 bullet off, destroying that computer.
Is unverified but has several thousand followers, posted that new emails found on Anthony Weiner's computer confirmed that Hillary Clinton was involved in a pedophilia ring. The rumor spread, inspiring some newfound internet sleuths to start digging around in John Podesta's hacked emails, searching for proof and location of the so-called sex ring.
In those emails, they are absolutely littered with code words. And many of these code words are food words, such as pizza.
Somebody said to me, hey, Dave, search for pizza in Podesta's emails. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you never really emerge the same person.
It was obvious from the get-go that these words were code words for something else because the context that they were used in did not make sense.
To be clear, not one single email in the Podesta emails discusses child sex trafficking or pedophilia. That is a fact. But there are dozens of what seem to be strangely worded emails dealing with pizza and handkerchiefs. Investigators say that those words in the emails about pizza and the talk of handkerchiefs is code language used by pedophiles.
There is some kind of code language. They're just not talking about pizza, folks. Who phrases that? Who blocks out an hour of time to eat a slice of pizza?
And look,
Get a service?
it just said that, or come over. Like, what? The pizza's going to come over? How the hell is the pizza come over? Not only that, I don't remember if they show it. I just want to say this real quick. They say, like, are you coming over to the farm or whatever this weekend? The hot tub's going to be hot, awesome. And we talked to so-and-so, and then there's 3 children named ages 7, 8, 9 or whatever. They'll be there too in the hot tub. Like, who the F says, Who tries to entice someone to come over by telling them there's going to be kids in a hot tub? If someone say, "Hey, Mike, come on over to the pool, the pool party. There's going to be a bunch of little kids in the pool," I'd be like, "What the hell's wrong with you? Why is that a selling point?" You know, maybe someone might say, "Oh, hope you don't mind. So, you know, my kids are going to be in the pool and they're having a party." Oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I got no problem with kids. I'm a nice guy, right? But and that's not it. I hope they say more in this. There's so much evidence. I mean, I've looked at this dozens of hours of this stuff, so none of this surprises me, but hopefully it helps you.
For half an hour, you can get a massage for half an hour, but you can't get food for half an hour. It just absolutely makes no sense.
There's other ones like the realtor found a handkerchief. I think it has a map that seems pizza related. And another one is Obama spent $65,000 flying in pizza and hot dogs from Chicago. Are we using the same channels?
Pizza is a well-known pedophile code word that actually has been used by law enforcement to arrest online sexual predators of children. And there's been multiple arrests that have been made by law enforcement of pedophiles trying to solicit children by using the pedophile code word pizza.
2007, unclassified FBI document. That document, according to the FBI, contains commonly used symbols by pedophiles to express their preference in children. Notice this one on.
And there's documents out that show that the Trudeau Foundation's old logo at one point had a symbol similar to these, just an entwining triangle that just, I don't know what you would call it, but and there's so much about Trudeau too. Just
in the triangle, that image signifies something called boy love. The pizza place next door to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, Besta Pizza, well, this was their logo until only a few weeks ago.
True story. I looked it up before they changed it.
The mainstream media refuses to cover it. The entire mainstream media redefined what Pizzagate was to make it sound ridiculous and less believable. And then they had people like Megyn Kelly come in, interview James Alefantis, didn't ask him any challenging questions.
A conspiracy theory that even the DC police say has no basis in fact.
She didn't ask him any questions about the pictures of children on his Instagram page looking abused, being sexualized. She didn't ask him about the pedophile talk. So the whole mainstream media painted him as this poor victim, as this person that was innocent, that was just victimized, as something that wasn't true. But just his Instagram page alone should have been enough for authorities to look into him.
Investigators have already proven there's nothing to the story, right? Well, actually, no. And that's what you need to know. For all that is here, there has not been one single public investigation of any of this. Not from local police, not from the FBI, no one. And that has to be the big question. Not for Podesta or for pizza parlor owners, but for law enforcement. Based on what may be or may not be here, the big question is, why hasn't any investigation taken place?
This is insane.
So many people in the mainstream media have said Pizzagate is a conspiracy theory. Pizzagate has been debunked. It has not been debunked. If it's been debunked, explain the code words. No one to this day, including John Podesta himself, can explain the code words in his emails.
Hey, John Podesta, can you please explain why
Here it is.
you have children rented for entertainment for your adult hot tub parties? No one has ever explained why John Podesta has literal pedophile and cannibalism paintings all over his office and his home. Tony Podesta too.
That's his brother, Tony.
And then you look into the spirit cooking dinners, and you look into Marina Abramovic, who's the one that was conducting the spirit cooking dinners. Why are they going to spirit cooking dinners? Why are they sacrificing chickens to Moloch in their backyard? This isn't my words, this is their words. This is in their emails.
I'd be willing to debate anyone who thinks that Pizzagate has been debunked.
You asked me when how am I getting additional briefings? That was the first and last time I talked to you.
So October 9th is the last time you have heard from the FBI at all?
Yes.
You have not got an update on the investigation to your personal email?
That is correct.
So not only did the mainstream media lie to you about Pizzagate, they actually told you that it was illegal to read John Podesta's emails on WikiLeaks. Chris Cuomo, with a straight face,
This is so dumb,
on CNN, looked into the cameras and said, it's illegal for you to read John Podesta's emails.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
That's how scared they are of those emails. And that's how explosive the content in those emails are. That they felt the need that they had to tell you you could not read those emails, and if you do, you might get arrested. Lie.
It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
No thanks. You're a liar. Like,
people that blow the whistle on elite pedophiles tend to have accidents. And a lot of those people have died mysteriously.
NBC News has learned that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Epstein took his own life while he was behind bars.
There's absolutely no excuse for this. What happened here, to me, is mind-boggling. The guy was a high-risk person, wasn't he? I mean, he's a guy that there are probably 50 very important people that have a motive to kill him. We don't even know who they are. It's true. But we know there are some people that are in a lot of trouble because of Epstein. They know who they are.
His flight logs contain names of some of the biggest, most famous, and most powerful people on the planet. Members of the royal family, Prince Andrew, models like Naomi Campbell, famous actors like Kevin Spacey, Bill Clinton on those flight logs over 25 times. Hillary Clinton, she's also been to the islands. So the bigger question is, how many people that went on his private jet, that went to his private island, that went to his massive ranch in New Mexico were also involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking of children?
It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing.
Yeah, and you didn't do anything.
No one that was legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever
Donald Trump.
reason, they were afraid of him.
And the amazing
Donald Trump is
thing
president.
about Cindy McCain is that her husband was a senator. She was on a board with the governor of Texas. She knew about Jeffrey Epstein. She did nothing. And her organization, the role of her organization is supposed to be to stop people like Jeffrey Epstein. They all knew. They did nothing about it. When Ricky Gervais said at the Golden Globes, you're all friends with Jeffrey Epstein, he wasn't lying.
So in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Wow, man.
You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you? Right.
How many of those elites have been to his islands? Not only is the mainstream media complicit,
Sick, man.
I would argue that there are accessories in the crimes against children.
She told me everything. She had pictures, she had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed, because I'm just like, oh my God, it was what
she's more upset about not getting the scoop
Edwards, the attorney, 3 years
than
ago,
all the
saying,
victims.
There will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Oh, man. Friends, the world we live in.
Then what happened in early 2018? Keith Raniere, who ran the NXIVM child sex trafficking cult, was arrested. Who else was arrested? Allison Mack. She's a famous celebrity who was on Smallville. She was also arrested for being a member of this cult that was involved in trafficking children. And not only trafficking children, they were running preschools down in Mexico. And NXIVM is another example of how these elite pedophile rings exist because this was a massive organization. This was funded by really wealthy people, including the Seagram heiresses, Nancy Salzman and Claire Bronfman.
Yeah.
So obviously they were using those preschools to traffic children. And the cult also engaged in human torture experiments on some of their members. And there actually was a civil lawsuit that was filed by 90 of their victims just the other day. So I imagine we are going to hear more about the human experiments, the torturing, the sexual abuse, and the child sex trafficking in this civil lawsuit. And a lot of the techniques that we see in this cult are very similar to the techniques that our government used in the MK Ultra program.
He was branding women with Keith's initials, and they were like, well, what's the bad thing exactly about that? Everyone in the outside world, AKA the real world, is like, they're branding women? So I left, I went to the executive board, and I said, I want my photos back, I want my videos back, the branding session was filmed, I want all of that back, I want my collateral back. None of that happened.
And it's the same fear, mind control, and you'll be destroyed if you get into the upper elites. And if you get to that point, if you start revealing anything, they have the same system to completely destroy you, destroy your career, blackmail you like Epstein, catch you, film you in compromising positions. And this goes both within Hollywood and celebrities and some of the elite. And it also goes.
And you got to wonder, like, why did that lady with the black hair agree to any of that in the beginning, right? Well, they didn't just come up to her and say, hey, want to be part of our sex cult. Obviously, someone was having sex with her. She was enjoying it, being introduced to more people enjoying it, and going deeper and deeper, right? Sex is a super powerful thing, emotionally, physically. And the reason it's powerful emotionally is because it's powerful spiritually. And we are spiritual, emotional beings with a physical flesh component to us. And that's how people get enslaved and in bondage. That's why sex is sacred and it's supposed to be protected in an institution, something safe between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, where you know this person loves me unconditionally. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to abuse me. You know, does that stuff happen? Yes, but not in good marriages. Awful what's happened to our society. And I didn't know better back in the day, friends. I was a part of all this kind of crap too. I mean, not all of this crap, but I lived a party life, a rock star life. I wanted to be a cool guy with, go to bars, pick up chicks, and I wanted people to be like, oh, wow, that guy's a stud. And it was a pathetic life.
On in Congress and the Senate, and if they even insinuate that they're going to reveal some of these things, they're done.
A lot of people here tonight felt like they lost. You know why? Because y'all been lied to. Google lied to you. Google. Facebook lied to you. Radio lied to you.
The powerful people that be, whether it's the music industry or the movie industry, you are only allowed a certain level of success if you are willing to join their club, if you're willing to be part of their secret society.
They love pyramids. What's with them in triangles,
if you're
right?
compromised. They will not let someone obtain a lot of fame and power if they can't control you.
A classic example, at least for me, is Katy Perry. Katy Perry was a gospel singer, very talented, but she was going nowhere. And she got up to Hollywood and basically they said, you want to be a success? You play by our rules. You step into the occult and you start putting that in your videos. And now she's doing videos with her in hell with satanic themes, and she's highly successful. You see that over with Lady Gaga, who came out and actually said she was so tired of being handled and manipulated, she had to take a break.
What did she do on her break? She went and received training from Abramovich, the satanic spiritist artist, quote unquote, who's friends with John Podesta, Tony Podesta, and Hillary Clinton, and Jay-Z. And you can go find those videos. They're easy to find. Just, dark. Poor girl. Like, she could have got free. She just got trapped in a whole nother way. Oops. Oh, crap.
That this is this young, outrageous
girl. There you go.
Strange clothes. She's into extremes. She's experimental. She have 43 million people on the Twitter following her, whatever she do, little monsters. And she came really very humble to my house and asked me if I can teach her. We made this workshop in the woods, and she was such a good student. She never cheated. She really went much farther than I asked her for.
She is a limitless human being. As myself, a self-proclaimed pop performance artist, want to go home and slit my wrists, and I am nothing. I have achieved no sense of art. She is so boundless.
Za performance zbog Lady Gaga odjednom su počeli da se interesuju za moj rad.
14-year-olds who never heard of Lady
Gaga. Mislim, normalne kulture u mas kulturu, što je...
Marina Abramovic, of course, is in the Podesta email.
Oh, that's just so awful.
Mislim, normalne da se interesuju za moj rad.
14-year-olds who never heard of performance art are now interested in my work. This is Abramovich here. Because of Lady Gaga. So that's how I emerged into the mass culture. 14-year-olds are now following this woman.
Is in the Podesta emails, and she's the one that conducts the spirit cooking dinners. She said that Marina did an exercise with her where she stripped her completely naked and left her in the middle of the woods to fend for herself and find her way back. Those are the kinds of things that people who are behind the MK Ultra programs do to children that they're mind controlling. We know Marina Abramovic is a Satanist. You Google Marina Abramovic's name in spirit cooking, and you will find hundreds of pictures of Marina Abramovic's events where they will have, for example, a cake that looks like a human being, and they'll
look at all the people at her
human cannibalism,
her fundraiser for her art.
And they claim they're not engaging in cannibalism, and you will find A-list actors and famous politicians and other very famous and successful, powerful business people at her events. They literally have food that look like human beings on dinner tables.
And now you know why they all hate Trump.
He's Italian and Greek, I mean, you know. And a very good cook. And a very good cook. And I'm sure there's something very nefarious about that risotto recipe. So...
Ugh, how dumb
After
are
I started
people?
researching the cult, I learned that Satanists believe that they have to reveal who they are in some way, shape, or form. So that is why we see a lot of these occult members in Hollywood constantly flaunting symbolism. We see the pyramid, the Illuminati pyramid a lot. We see the evil one eye constantly. It's always on the cover of
also
magazines.
The Eye of Horus.
We see these are supposed to be the 666 devil symbols. We constantly see those symbols. We also see pedophile symbols, the swirl or the triangle within a triangle.
I guarantee this wasn't his purse.
And we also see a lot of these members of the cult go on their social media and they talk about raping children. They talk about worshiping Satan. And people write it off as a joke, but they're not joking. I don't care if you're a major comedian. You can't tell me that's funny, because there is no joke about raping children that's funny.
You don't know what that is.
I have no idea.
Well, you don't know. Jimmy Fallon doesn't know. David Letterman doesn't know.
We don't know.
All the comics and show business don't know what this is.
takes guts to put out a
Look
film
at people
that does
cheering.
because no one's done it up until now. But when that's done and people see these facts and they say, my gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about the Gulf of Tonkin. I didn't know that about the Vietnam War. My gosh. And they go in, they check it out, and it's all true. And now they're seeing the dots. A good film will teach them how to practice critical thinking, to analyze what you're watching. If we can get people to analyze what they're watching, we've crossed a huge hurdle. Because once they start analyzing it, they're going to see the dots, and typically the dots will connect themselves.
Liz Crokin put herself so far out in front that she was mocked. She was laughed at. She was called crazy. Well, let me ask you a question. For all those people that did that to Liz, does she seem so crazy now?
When you put all of those facts together and you use critical thinking, you realize this stuff is real. There's not one smoking gun. There's many small smoking guns that you have to piece together, and you have to use critical thinking to understand this stuff is real. So again, the bigger question is, now that Jeffrey Epstein's been exposed and he's allegedly dead, how many of his friends that were frequent visitors on his sex trafficking island were also involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking of children? And that's what Pizzagate is.
How does he get arrested under Trump's watch, though, and get suicided? You know? Like, is it just, well, there's no jurisdiction to put Navy SEALs in the frickin' prison?
Stand back, look at the lyrics of your songs, look at the agendas of the movies, look at the messages of the media that you're absorbing. Because it's impossible to say that all of it's bad, like all of Hollywood's bad. That's not true. Like, it's like saying all of the CIA is bad. There's a lot of good people that work in both industries that aren't bad people. But if the people that control the narratives and the agendas are not good people, and they have different agendas, they can put that on you and you won't even notice it unless you stand back and look at things objectively.
Man. I can't compromise anymore. That for me, that's not what life's about. I want to send a good message to my kids, and I want them to know that at the end of the day, their dad did what was right, and their dad fought for the good things in life. If I could ever get the opportunity to make movies that send out good messages, and then people start realizing that they can be good, and that they can jump on the bandwagon of good, that's the next phase. People start believing it. It's the same thing with desensitizing with the violence. People start believing that it's okay to kill somebody, or watching somebody die isn't a big deal. When people aren't helping other people in need on the streets, there's a problem in this world. But this could all be changed right now. The reason why I'm doing this documentary is because I want to be one of the first people to come out and say, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. We are good people. Humans are good, and we can make the world a better place. Because the money and the technology to make this world a better place is there. It's just been covered up and controlled for so long that it's time for it all to come out. And maybe I'm the catalyst for something better.
Well, what does the media look like in the future? Well, to me, what I would hope is that it's not filtered. I would love to build a platform or build some sort of system where artists could connect directly to their audience. I want to make products and tell stories that bring humanity together, that bring compassion, that bring love, that bring forgiveness, that bring inspiration and courage back to the audience without having the influence of violence or gratuitous sex or gratuitous death or gratuitous horror. Because those are things and images that get stored in our psyche and our soul, and I don't think that's the way that this earth was intended to be.
That's definitely true. All right, friends, that was Out of Shadows. Where the heck is my mouse? Oh, whoops. Oh. Okay, well. Just trying to pause this next video. I don't want it playing in the background. There you have it, friends. That actually was not a deep dive. You know, that was just going into the pool, maybe a foot or so, showing you the evidence so that hopefully it's all pieced together and you go, wow, you know what? The world we live in is not what I thought it was. I mean, the fact that, yes, the CIA are and have been using the media, and yes, you know, there really is occultism widespread all over. I mean, it grieves my spirit that so many people don't see what's going on, and because they don't see what's going on, they don't see what's going on with the coronavirus and what they're trying to do and where this is all going. Friends, for me, this was super easy to accept because at 20 years old, I went off, joined the army, and I saw what my friends were doing and the fun that they were having. And because I did not have a true moral compass, I did not have my life based on a rock of truth and moral absolutes and what really is good and what really is evil and what is wrong. It was easy for me to say, well, I'll just try some of this. And it was awful, you know. And 10 years later, I was trapped in it. My life was about traveling, myself, spending money, buying nice things, partying. And it's okay to, you know, have some enjoyment, but when that is like the highest purpose of your life is meaningless. And so I came to understand that I was not a good person. I had the capacity to be nice and kind, and oftentimes I was. Sometimes I was charitable. People, you know, I was nice to people. People liked me. They thought I was funny, and but then sometimes I was mean, right? But I was almost always selfish. And so many people today don't realize that they're selfish. Even in so many good deeds people do, it's so that they can feel good for doing them or feel good for seeing the cheer that they bring someone else, right? That's actually selfish. Anyways, my life got changed and I came to understand some things. One, the heart is deceitful and wicked above all else. Who can know it? Not man, only God. 2, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. 3, there is no one good but God. Okay? That's what I came to understand. And I looked at my life and I saw just how desperately broken I was. I saw that every good thing I wanted in life, I destroyed. I saw that every good plan I had in my life could not come to fruition. And I realized that it was because I didn't know God. It's because I wasn't following him. And he brought me to a broken, horrible, painful point where I realized I was a sinner, lost and dead inside. And I needed to be born again, have my spirit made alive, and be saved and have eternal life by knowing God. And that's like, I feel so bad seeing, you know, some of the people in this documentary, like the filmmaker himself, hoping, well, there's good people, everyone's good. No, everyone's not good. The only reason we aren't Jeffrey Epstein is because we don't have his money, because our life is different, you know? It's all about the sovereignty of God and his plan for a person's life. Where are they going to go? How are they going to end up? People make choices along the way, but, you know, so we're not going, just because there's technology and stuff and money does not mean that we could get together and make the world a better place. In fact, you elect one of your friends as the new president, give them $3 trillion and see how they handle it. The only person who can help us is God. And thankfully, he does work through people. And there's a verse in his word, the Holy Bible, that says, if my people would only humble themselves and repent and pray in my name and call out to me, I will cleanse their land and I will heal them. That's 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. God was talking to his people Israel back in the day, probably around 650 BC, before they had to be exiled. They would not turn from their evilness, and they were worshiping false gods and stuff. They were worshiping themselves. A lot of people don't want to admit this, but their self-idolatry, their self-worship, their selfishness is basically Satanism, because Satan has tricked them to worship themselves and love themselves more than God. And many people don't even know God. But you can, because God made you, loves you, and wants for you to know him. And he's made a way through Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ, the God-man, God who put on flesh, who always existed but manifested in the flesh in about 4 BC to a virgin named Mary, okay, who, yes, did later have children with Joseph and create half-brothers, James and Jude, and half-sisters of Jesus. Okay, she was not in perpetual virginity. That's a satanic, demonic doctrine. Sorry if I burst some bubbles there, but it's true. And you've got to come out of that system. The idea that you're saved through Jesus and the Holy Church under salvation and grace by Mary, it's satanic. In fact, God says you can be saved by grace through faith, and it's a gift. And it's not by works, okay? Not sacraments, not rituals, not rites, not man's traditions, but only by the finished work of Jesus. So Jesus died for our sins on the cross. He lived the perfect life. He deserved to go to heaven by his own righteousness. And then he rose from the dead because he was infinitely powerful as God, capable of dying as a man. And he invites us to believe that he's done this in faith and to follow him and proclaim his good news that we can be restored in our relationship to God, and to share that with everyone so that God can grow a kingdom of citizens to fill the earth. That's his plan. However, in his wisdom, he's also showing the world that he's more powerful than Satan and all the people that follow Satan and have rejected God. Okay, so people want to rebel against God, and they say, I'm never going to follow you. I'm going to make this world a greater place by myself. And he has to show them, no, you're wrong, and show the devil that he was wrong in trying to usurp the authority from God and establish his throne over the earth and become the God of this world. That's why there's talk of an antichrist in the Bible. There's also the antichrist spirit of people that just have been deceived by the devil to not want Jesus Christ to be in their life as Lord, Savior, and friend. But specifically a man who's going to rule in the end over a one world government. And that's what we're moving to. So God's going to let it happen just so once more he can show that he's all powerful by having a victory over a whole entire world against him. Imagine that. People will realize they are like straw before the one and only God who spoke the universe into existence and, created the stars also. As a side thought, when you consider the power of our sun, knowing that it is only, kind of in the mid-range of sizes of stars and output power, like, my gosh, there's 6 sextillion stars in the universe. That's more than trillions. That's 1,000 times more than trillion, I think. I think sextillion is. And so you got 6 sextillion estimated stars, and God made them all. And we think that we're going to stand up against him when he returns. Anyways, he's going to return. He's going to establish his kingdom forever. Okay? That's what you want to be a part of. When the filmmaker here says that oh, he wishes the world could be a better place and he thinks that they can make it. Mankind's not going to make a utopia because we're sinful. We cannot help but always do what's wrong. We always get corrupted by our wealth, by our possessions, by our relationships, whatever. And so God has to come back to make it right. And that's his plan, and it's going to be good. Hope you enjoyed tonight. That's all I got to say. Next week and the week after, we're going to break down a 10-part series into 2 parts. So 5 parts each, about 2.5 hours. I'll try not to talk as much, but we're going to be diving even deeper into what you saw tonight. And it is awful, but it's real. And I mean, one of the things is a still from a video footage that came out, I don't know how many years ago, of like a 12-year-old boy falling naked from Windsor Palace when he was trying to climb out on a rope made of tied bed sheets. And, you know, he lost his grip, lost his energy, and fell like 4 stories to his death. You didn't hear about that one, did you? Anyways, we're being lied to, we're being deceived, but the God of truth wants you to know that he loves you, he made you, he's calling out to you. His glory, you know, just screams forth every day as you look at the amazing nighttime sky, as you look at creation around us, as you look at the intricacy and marvel at how ingenious our bodies are, and the cells inside, and DNA, and just how amazing children are, and babies, and to a lesser extent animals, but still very incredible. So God bless you. Have a good night. I'm going to see you off with a quick prayer because he's the only one that can help. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much that you're so good and gracious. You are just. You are holy. We cannot come to you in our sin, but you've made a way through Jesus, and his shed blood can wash us clean if only we would humbly bend our knee, turn from sin, and accept that finished work and believe in you and pursue you and follow you. And you're so good. You said that anyone who would seek you with all their heart would find you when they sought you, and you would reward faith and be found by them. So I pray, Lord God, anyone watching this, I pray that they would come to know you deeper. I pray that those that do know you would know you even deeper than they already do, and that people would worship you in spirit and truth. And Lord, I do pray that you would turn the tide in all of this evil, but I also understand, God, that many of the signs are in place for your return, and truthfully, that would be much better than trying to right the world, but your will be done. And Lord God, it's not a coincidence that all the evil people in this video hate you, hate conservative morals, hate conservative fundamental biblical Christianity, and for some reason they hate the president, Donald Trump, who only 4 years ago they all loved. So that tells me, Lord, that you're using him to do something that you want. And if they're against you, well then whatever they want probably isn't good. So I pray, Lord, that you would give 4 more years to President Trump, Mike Pence, and I pray that the godly people around them will have an influence that they may do good rather than evil. But my hope is certainly not in them either. My hope is in you, Lord. And I pray that you'll help everyone else to follow you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, God bless you, everybody. That's all we got for tonight. Peace.